Alright guys, in today's video we're talking more about the PlayStation 5. We have some pretty interesting information to go over and talk about that I will let you know right off the bat. These are rumors, but some of them seem to be coming from sources that it seems unlikely they would just make it up. But we do have to understand that none of the information we're going over here today is official, but I do find it pretty interesting, and I think many of you who are excited for the PlayStation 5 will find it interesting as well. We are talking about the look of the PlayStation 5, as well as Sony apparently holding back a major feature or big software feature, as well as there's one very unique detail about the PlayStation 5 that has not leaked out yet. The reason being, apparently Sony would be able to easily track down the individual who ended up leaking it, and how apparently this console is going to look nothing like the next generation Xbox. So it's very interesting stuff. We're going to be talking about it, and we're also going to be talking about how a Turkish retailer, apparently, some are believing this, leaked out that the PlayStation 5 will support backwards compatibility with PS2, PS3, and PS4 games, which is obviously a huge thing if it's true, but I'm not so sure that it's true. But I've seen some people kind of holding on to this, and I know how important this, potential feature is to a lot of PlayStation fans, so I wanted to take some time here to go over it and give you my thoughts on it as well. So this is what we're going to be discussing in today's video. Before we go any further, if you could do me a big favor, show your support by hitting the like button and helping the video out, and make sure you hit the subscribe button as well so you don't miss any future content. But the headline of this article reads, PlayStation 5 looks nothing like Xbox Series X, almost twice as big as PlayStation 4 Pro, and this is a rumor. So this popular Russian industry website GameMag claims to have information from a source currently working on a next-gen title that the PlayStation 5 not only looks nothing like the Xbox Series X in the flesh, so to speak, but is almost twice as big as the current PlayStation 4 Pro console too. And of course, we do have to take this with a grain of salt. This was actually spotted on Reset Era, and this is what GameMag, apparently this is what they're claiming. So the first bullet point here is that the PlayStation 5 final design does not look anything like what has been leaked before. So I find this interesting as well, because we know that there have been a lot of fan-made designs and mock-ups and renders, and some of them, in my opinion, look good, others not so good. Some of them do look potentially realistic, like, oh, this could be what it looks like. Others look absolutely unrealistic. Sony would never do something like that. But based off of what they're saying here, apparently nobody's actually nailed it so far. But what's also interesting is you have to imagine that if this is true, they are also talking about the dev kits, the most popular image of the PlayStation 5, because it's the closest thing to an official image of the PlayStation 5 that we have. And the dev kit was pretty divisive. There are some people who loved it, a lot of people who just couldn't stand it, and were absolutely, hoping that that is not anything remotely close to what the final PlayStation 5 design ends up looking like. And there's a lot of people that I think were just okay with it. But according to GameMag, that's not what it's going to look like, which doesn't surprise me too much. And I do kind of believe that, because dev kits usually do end up looking pretty different compared to what the final product ends up looking like. Something else that's very interesting here, another bullet point to point out, is that PS5 has one unique detail. Nobody talked about it because Sony most likely can track down the leaker if it actually leaks. Now, I have no idea what this unique detail could be. I'm assuming it has something to do with the console itself, like the look of it or something that is actually going to be part of the console. I don't know if maybe... I heard some people speculating that it could be a touch screen on the DualSense or something like that. It could be, but again, if this rumor is to be believed, Sony has one very unique detail that they don't remotely allude to. Like, I have no idea what this detail could be, but they're saying the reason why it most likely has not leaked out yet and will not leak out is because Sony could very easily track down the individual who leaked it out. And obviously, anybody who is thinking about leaking something, that's the last thing they want to have to deal with. So I want to know, you guys let me know in the comments down below, what do you think this one unique detail could be that nobody has talked about yet? I do want to kind of line this up with the fact that we had a PlayStation 5 engineer, a former PlayStation 5 engineer earlier this year, kind of allude to the idea that there are some secrets that are being kept very well that haven't actually leaked out yet. Could this be maybe a little bit of evidence that maybe this rumor is actually true? So the third bullet point here says Sony did not unveil all of the secrets of the PlayStation 5. They should announce at least one software feature. It was briefly talked about in Western press, but nobody paid enough attention. Now, this one is also very interesting to me because I have to think, what feature could this be that apparently Sony already talked about it in the press, but nobody really paid much attention to it? I honestly have no idea. I don't know if it could be some type of backwards compatibility or just something else that they mentioned that really nobody's kind of catching on to. So again, I'm going to have to refer to my comment section here and ask you guys to leave me your best thought, your best guess as to what this unannounced software feature could be. Or I guess we could say announced. Apparently it's already been talked about, but nobody's caught on to it. Let me know what you think that could be. Now, moving on to the next bullet point here, it says design-wise, the PlayStation 5 does not look like the Xbox Series X at all, nor does it look like a smart speaker. It's a traditional console. It's a flat, square, symmetrical box with rounded edges. And then it goes on to say, at the same time, the PS5 is, quote, very fat, unquote, almost twice as fat as the PS4 Pro. Now, that's, I want to say, not all that surprising to me. If you were to ask me, what do you expect from the PlayStation 5 in terms of how it's going to end up looking, what do you expect to see revealed from Sony, I would tell you something that looks more akin to a traditional console. I don't see them doing a really radical design like kind of what we've seen with, although I don't want to say that what Microsoft did with the next generation Xbox is all that radical, but it's definitely different, right? It's not something you would normally consider to be like a traditional looking console. A lot of people say it looks more in line with like a PC tower, which I do agree with. And some people were really wondering, like, is Sony going to follow them here and do the same thing? And it seems like they're not. Now, a little bit of information that we did go over to kind of back this up is when we talked about the cooling solution that Sony plans to use in the PlayStation 5 and how it is apparently revolutionary, according to some individuals, and we learned through a patent that it cools the console from both the bottom and the top simultaneously. And so because of that, a lot of people who understand like this patent and everything behind, or at least what this patent is saying about the cooling solution, we can expect either a smaller console or a more traditional looking console. And so I think, the only negative here, I guess they're trying to paint it as a negative. I don't consider it a negative at all, is that the console is going to be very thick, right? So take that for what you will. I'm totally fine with that. I have no problem if the console is extremely thick, as long as it's just, it does what it's supposed to. In fact, I honestly do not care what the console looks like. For me, it's more about function over form factor. I just want it to do what it's supposed to do, and if it can stay quiet and work as efficiently as it's supposed to, then I honestly don't care how it looks, and I certainly don't care how thick it is. So, very interesting information here, but we are going to move on from that and talk about this other rumor that's coming from a Turkish retailer. Now, there is a little bit of an update on this, and we're going to read that, but I want to go over the original information. It says, a Turkish retailer has appeared to have revealed that the PS5 will support backwards compatibility across PS4, PS3, and PS2 games. Now, somebody actually translated this because there was it looks like it's a web page that was discovered online, and I think it comes from a retailer, and it's a pretty popular retailer in Turkey, so it does lend a little bit of credibility, and they translated it. And it says, since all games in previous versions of PlayStation 5 are supported, these games continue to play in the same way. In other words, all games on PlayStation 2, 3, and 4 can be played on PS5 with this feature, and the Sony brand, which steals the hearts of gamers, allows gamers to continue their games without giving up the games they are used to. So it goes on to say, now it is worth noting that the webpage does highlight some other things, such as the PS4 having a touch screen on the DualSense controller, which, again, this is pretty interesting to me because maybe this does kind of line up with this feature or this unique detail that Sony hasn't revealed yet and they've kept it secret. Maybe this is what they're keeping secret, the fact that it does actually have a touchscreen. But it goes on to say here, but clearly it doesn't have a full-on screen. However, this could be a big mistranslation, with the text actually referring to a touchpad and simply being able to interact with maps and objectives in new ways rather than being able to see them on screen. And I do agree with that. It sounds like this could certainly be just, a mistranslation. But we do have an update on this. And it says here, it seems like the posting on the website is false, as Jeff Grubb, who has revealed a number of details about the PS5 event and this summer in gaming as a whole, has tweeted a response to it. And, he basically tweeted to somebody's Twitter account who was posting this out, saying it seems like it may have leaked out that the PS5 is going to be fully backwards compatible with PS2, PS3, and PS4. He said, just post more Sheldon gifts, Hunter. That's what he was saying in response to Hunter, who actually posted this out. And it just sounds like what he's basically trying to say here is that it's not true. Don't get people hyped up for it or believing it. It's just not true. Now, to kind of end this video, and I don't mean to end the video on a low note, but I do have to agree that I would not be anticipating something like this. Everything we're talking about in today's video, we did discuss during the podcast, but I know that not everybody can watch the podcast or is interested in watching the podcast because of how long it runs. And so I had to make sure to talk about this, but something I said in my podcast that I'm still backing up here is, if you are expecting full backwards compatibility to be announced, I honestly wouldn't expect that, simply because I think you just don't want to set yourself up for that type of disappointment. I don't want to say that there isn't a chance at all that Sony won't reveal that as a major feature, that they couldn't be hiding it, because of course they could be. Anything is possible, and we still do have a lot to learn about the PlayStation 5 and how they're going to handle next generation. But I just think maybe it's best to just kind of keep your expectations in check and not, jump to the conclusion that it's going to be fully backwards compatible. I would say, this is what I said on my podcast, and I'll say it again here, I think it's best to hope for it, but don't expect it. It's okay to be hopeful, of course, but just don't expect it, because if you expect it and it doesn't happen, there's a really good chance you're going to feel disappointed, and that disappointment's just going to take away from the overall excitement going into next generation. However, with that being said, I certainly hope it is true, right? Like, I would love to see that announced by Sony. For me personally, it is not a make or break feature. I think for me, any type of backwards compatibility, especially when you go back to PS3, PS2, or beyond, maybe even PS1, to me that's just the cherry on top. It's not going to be a make or break situation as to whether or not I'm going to buy this new console. And so, yeah, I guess that's just my feelings on it. So that's going to do it for the video, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. I hope you did find it informative. Again, we have to understand that everything we talked about here is still rumor territory, but it's some very interesting stuff that's coming from interesting places, interesting sources as well. So let me know your thoughts about all this stuff down in the comments below. Leave the video a like if you did enjoy it or found it informative. Subscribe to the channel if you're new and haven't already. Hit the bell notification icon so you never miss an upload, and feel free to share this video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.